Hello, everybody. Good evening, wherever you are. I'm Nagam Alsmari, and you are watching or listening to Inspire and Lead. Thanks for joining us. And tonight, my guest is Randy Quinones. And his life has been an up and down. I think you can relate to probably. From housing projects to drugs, to prison, to homelessness. Now, you may think that, this could be somewhat of a failure. A lot of people think that. But remember, this leadership podcast is about leadership. And so we get to listen to Randy today and hear him out and hear his story and see how he made it from all of these things that I've just mentioned to something else, to something great. Now, Randy is a pastor, and he has been serving as a counselor for over 20 years. And he has written his book, Pain to Power. And today he's here joining us to talk to us about it. And I am so excited to have you here, Randy, and have you join us. And I can't wait to listen to you and learn from you. Welcome to Inspire and Lead, Randy.
Oh my God, Nagam, thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show. I'm excited as well. Thank you for that beautiful introduction.
You are so welcome. I'm so happy to have you on here because I have so much to learn from you, Randy. I'm just looking at some of the work that you've done. You are a John Maxwell member too, and I failed to mention this, which I'm a part of as well. And I can't wait to listen to your story. So I'm going to get right into it, right? So, Randy, I mentioned a lot of things that people can consider as failures that I talked about in your life. Well, can you tell our listeners, our watchers of this podcast today, what does leadership mean to you? Let's start there.
Yeah, as you know, because we're both part of John Maxwell's team as coaches, I go with his philosophy in terms of leader is influence, leadership is influence, and influence is adding value to people. So the way you influence people is by adding value to them every single day. And that is what I consider leader. Now, leadership philosophy is somebody that has a leader or a mentor or a role model, and there's somebody who has been in a position that has been a follower before they're able to be a leader. And there's somebody who's able to identify leadership qualities within themselves and besides vision casting, because I think that's important, but the other one is trustworthiness. People are not going to follow you if they can't trust you. Trustworthiness, honesty, and integrity, those guys kind of hang together. They're like relatives, they're like cousins. Trustworthiness, integrity, and honesty, those three make up a leader. And then I also think a leader needs to be continually developing and growing.
Wow. Amazing. Absolutely. Number one, I have to go back to your last point. Absolutely always develop and grow, because we can't hit a point in the ceiling and say, that's it, we're done growing. There's no way we could do that. So definitely. And then back to trust and integrity. I think what you have done, looking at your biography, I think you've been transparent about your background, because this helps add to people, add value to people, and show that we can be vulnerable as leaders and we can still develop and grow. So I want you to kind of delve into, tell us about your journey. What led you to where you are today?
Yeah, so there was an IMC conference. John Maxwell just had a conference. I believe it was last weekend. And unfortunately, I was unable to attend live in Orlando, but I did buy the virtual ticket. And I was listening to one of the talks, and it was by John Maxwell, even though there was a list of various speakers. And John Maxwell said this. He said, I have ego moments where I'm soaring, but I also have hippo moments where all I want to do is wallow in the mud. He said, I want to share with you guys my ego moments, but I don't want to share my hippo moments. And I related to that so much. And then he said, but I have to share my hippo moments. Now, when you have secrets, the longer you carry them, the heavier they get, and the more dysfunction is going to come out of that very secret. There comes a point where we think we're taking secrets to the grave, and the secrets are really taking us to the grave. And then Brene Brown and other people always say transparency leads to transformation. Transparency leads to transformation, and that somebody else, other people may be responsible for your wounds, but you're responsible for your healing. And the only way we're going to heal is by being honest. And I started practicing honesty maybe about for real, on a deep level about 10 years ago. And I wanted to put it in a book. In the first 4 chapters of my book, Pain to Power, that's my book. The title of my book is Pain to Power, How I Went from Damage to Destiny, because I believe everybody deserves to know their destiny amidst all the damage that they have endured throughout their journey of life. Now, my journey is, I took it all the way from the beginning. I had to show that I come from a rotten tree, and that I was willing and able to break the family generational curse. And what I'm talking about is that my father, it was 2015 Valentine's Day in Whittier, California, down here in East LA. My father was going to pass away on his deathbed, and even though it was a joy to be by his side during his last breath and tell him that his boy, I rubbed his head, I whispered in his ear, you can let go, your boy is great, I'm on my feet, I'm going to be okay, Dad. I never knew his background. So it motivated me to take my mother out a couple of different times for coffee to get her backstory, because I wanted to know. And my mother endured a whole lot of pain herself. My mother was a heroin addict. My mother did 17 years in the penitentiary. My mother was inappropriately touched. My mother was a runaway. My mother came from a whole lot of dysfunction and pain and wounds that she carried for years in her soul, and she dealt with it through a needle of heroin. And I followed along that family tree, being born and raised in East LA in low-income housing projects, 1449 Magdalena Street, apartment 119, building 8. I remember in the projects, I remember everything. And as I went through my own pain and own dysfunction, I was a gang member. I did 7 years in the penitentiary. I've been in and out of juvenile hall since childhood, since young teenage years, and turned into an addict, a full-blown addict, heroin addict, all the way to the day that I had gotten clean.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah. I listening to you being transparent, I think transparency leads to credibility as well. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not true to yourself with others, people are not going to believe you. They're not going to trust who you are. If you're just showing who you are right now, but it's good to go back to your roots and actually talk about what brought you here. And I appreciate you being vulnerable, and I appreciate you being honest with, where you were and how, well, we're going to talk about how it made you, right? Because that's the important stuff. It's that you go through this to gain something. What are the lessons that you learned from this, and how did these experiences in your life make who you are today? Yeah,
the transparency. I love what you said. That transparency establishes credibility, and here's why. When you tell your very human story, a lot of people did a lot of things that nobody knows about, and that's when the enemy does a number on them and their secrets begin to hurt them. And we identify the pain, we assess the pain by looking at the pain through different angles, and then we look underneath the pain, which is usually the lie. When it comes to pain, when you experience pain or trauma, that's when the enemy, the devil, the disease, when you experience pain and trauma, that's when the enemy has access to your soul. That's when he starts tattooing lies on you. You're not enough. Nobody does anything great coming from the family you come from. And then that lie, you repeat the lie over and over and over, and then it becomes a belief, and the belief becomes your identity. So all through my journey, it has been dark. It wasn't really dark periods. I mean, I can't remember anything fun in my life. All I remember is pain, feeling guilt, shame, empty, hurt, embarrassed. My mother was in prison, my father was in prison, and when they were out, they were drug addicts. And then instead of I joined the drug addict with my family. So I got high with my mom. I got high with my dad. I got high with my brother. I mean, the devil had us living like a puppet on the string for many, many years. And what I did not know is that it took a little bit of God's grace. That grace is all around us. And here's why I say that my bottom was so low, only a God could reach that deep. I have too many near-death experiences that have no sensible explanation. So I did not know none of this until way later, until I was clean. But I look back and I could reinterpret my past where I no longer see myself as a victim, but I see grace that carried me all through that pain. And I finally learned how to turn it into power. And the power is the book. The power is making a contribution to something greater than myself. The power is giving. The power is serving. That's the power. What we're doing right here, having a podcast so that it can add value and encourage other people, this is the power. It makes all that pain worthy of going through it. Even though when I was in it, it did not feel like it. I didn't know that it was developing strength and character and building inside of me this mindset that that was gonna be a blessing to other people throughout all that time.
So Randy, you spoke about having all this embarrassment and shame and all these different feelings that it feels kind of like they're caging you in. They're creating like some sort of wall around you from what you could actually be. When did you break that wall? When did you feel like this is it? This is my moment. Now it's time for me to change or do something. Did you have a moment, or did it take time, or who helped you? Is there someone that did? Talk about that for a sec.
Yeah, that was a gradual process rather than a sudden. There was no light or awakening that came like that. So I had gotten clean through a 12-step program January the 20th of 2000. So I got clean through a 12-step program, but I really didn't start becoming a leader and changing till like 2016. About 16 years clean. That's when I started really learning that you get one life, about legacy, about doing something bigger than yourself, about it's not about you, about don't personalize your pain, give to others, all that, all those principles and concepts, they're not come into play till like 16 years clean. So I wish it would have happened before, but it didn't. It took 16 years of being clean and sober before my life really picked up and turned it on a notch, to become empowered to be power. So if that makes sense, it took. I got clean through a 12-step process, and I started working steps, and I got a mentor immediately. And then I probably would have to give the credit to a guy named Marco Pardo. And this was one of my mentors since 2005. And I was on the phone with him yesterday for about a half hour. And he is so far up the road from me, and he shines light on every step that I take in front of me. So I would have to give credit to him being the primary mentor in my life that really helped close emotional doors from the trauma and the pain in the past, and really kind of helped me use the pain of the past to benefit and profit other people in the future.
So it's not a one thing. I'm kind of reiterating what you had said. It's not a one-time realization and boom, it's done for you. It took time for you to come to an understanding of where your life is currently and how you could be living it differently and what it could mean for you, for those around you, and for other people that you could be adding value to. And then the reason why I'm reiterating this is because this is truly powerful. A lot of times in leadership, we face people who say they are not leaders. They have to be born a leader, or they have to have certain title or rank or position, or they have to live their life a certain way. But the example you're giving today is a perfect example of you work on yourself as a leader. You become one when you make that decision. You can actually take steps to be a leader. And what that means is going back to also what you said at the beginning, is that becoming a leader, meaning influencing others. Mm-hmm. So it's important for people to know that you can be a leader, you can have influence, positive influence on others if you decide so, if you work towards that, because it's not something you have to have a tattooed on you, or have to be born with, or become a CEO to become a leader. Yeah. So you have yeah, right. A lot of people think they see these people up there in in the corner office thinking they're leaders, but not necessarily, right? We know that that's not necessary. Right. True. Right. But your life is a great example of that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, when you that I think some people were born into a military family, a leadership family, where it's in the environment and atmosphere constantly, and that a person could get groomed a little bit more, and they may have an edge or advantage versus somebody stepping into that role. So I happen to believe that where you come from does not determine where you're going. And when you decide, or other people give you feedback, man, you got a good presence, a good energy, that's a good leadership quality. Now, when that concept gets birthed into your brain, into your soul, into your spirit, now we have to be strategic or intentional in terms of developing that by going to leadership conferences, to being around other leaders, watching, listening how they handle a situation. So being out front doesn't make you a leader. Being the loudest doesn't make you a leader. Having the title doesn't make you a leader. I think a leader is somebody that has that in the storm knows how to remain and navigate through it. I think a leader is somebody that has great confidence and adds value. Nobody is going to follow you if you're not confident. So I think a leader can be developed and groomed. And you're right. It's my story. Negative. I have always been a follower. If you said, let's go over here, I went. Let's do this, I went. I didn't even question where are we going. And it led to some painful moments and suffering. If somebody said, we're going to do this, we're going over here, we're going to commit a crime because that's where I come from. We're going to do a burglary, we're going to do a robbery. Without questioning, I followed it, even though it didn't feel right, because I was incongruent. I was going against my own integrity, my intuitive wisdom, my gut feeling. I still went along. Now, I've been a follower all my life, and now I consider myself a leader. And I think you can turn the tide and start developing it and be intentional about it and being a good leader, that you want to have an influence in a positive way over people behind you.
And something else too, Randy, that I think is important. You mentioned environment, where you live, maybe how you're raised, your household, your upbringing. That could be true for a lot of people, but they may still not be, may not actually go forth with being a leader because they don't have the right mindset. And I truly believe in this. I've seen this a lot, that there are individuals who have this fixed mindset where I can't is is the thing they say. I can't do this because I don't have the right tools or whatever the case may be. And with a growth mindset, on the other hand, you can't, but you're going to work on it. That's the response you get. And I've worked with so many people who have this growth mindset, which is so much easier to work with such people, right? And you could be raised in the right environment or not, but if you have what it takes, if you have the capacity, for leadership, number one, and you have this servitude attitude, leadership isn't about making yourself look good. It's about what are you going to do for others, adding value to others, like you stated. So having this growth mindset, I think you're talking about yourself, you're talking about your life and how you've changed. I don't think you would have made this change if you did not have a growth mindset. I think if you had the fixed mindset, you would have stayed right where you were, because you probably have this I can't attitude, but you don't. You have the I can't do it yet. Right?
Yeah. That there's a hunger on the inside of me. There's a motor, there's an engine inside of me that doesn't turn off. I mean, I'm developing, getting better, listening, reading all day long. I got a vision board right over here of where I want to go and what I want my life to look like. And then I do the work almost all day long. I'm working on myself. So there is an intense desire to expand and grow, and the motive is to give more. So there is definitely a desire that just doesn't quit. I just,
that's the spark. I call it my spark, because I get really excited too when there's something new that I want to learn and devour and actually put to practice. And I think it's different for everyone.
Absolutely. But I had this desire since I got clean, but I did not have a roadmap to around 16 years clean. So I had the desire, a hunger for improvement, but I didn't get a roadmap to about 16 years after my spark. A roadmap didn't come for about 16 years. And then the last 8 years, I've been on the roadmap to self-improvement.
So let's talk about your book, Randy. I know that your story is in there, and we don't want to give too much away of it, right? We want to encourage people to actually pick up your book and get a copy for themselves and get inspired. So when, first of all, I'm curious, when did you get the idea to write the book? When did you get started on that?
Yeah. Can you put the link up to the book?
Absolutely.
So people could get the book. The name of the book is Pain to Power. I wrestled with the name. So the first thing I did was I had to come up with a name. So at first I was going to make the name Damage to Destiny. And then because I was raised in projects and now I'm a pastor, I was going to call it From Projects to Being a Pastor, From Projects to Pastor. And then I decided, no, because I want my message to be open to everybody. And some people have different responses when they hear the word pastor. Some people elevate you, some people get turned off. So I didn't want to put Projects to Pastor. So I turned it Pain to Power, and the subtitle is how I went from Damage to Destiny. Now, the book, I believe the book was on the inside of me about 10 years ago. I first got the idea. I call it God-inspired concepts because it doesn't come from me. Everything good doesn't usually come from me. I call it a God-inspired concept, a God idea.
I love it.
A vision has been imparted inside of me that I could pinpoint you to many experiences that I call God-inspired ideas, and I felt led, and I followed. I felt more in tune, more guided by a higher power, and I followed and struck gold. So 10 years ago, it was on the inside of me, nagging, tugging on my spirit to write a book about 10 years ago. And then maybe about 5 years ago, I actually put my hand to a legal pad and wrote like 3 pages and then put the legal pad away for another 3 years. And then during the pandemic of 2021, it was turning New Year's. Now, every New Year's Eve, we have a tradition in my family. So our dinner for New Year's Eve is steak and shrimp every New Year's Eve. And then at midnight, we are praying. My family's a praying. We're on our knees. We're bringing in a new year on our knees in prayer. But then we write out our goals. So my wife, my daughter, my mother, me, we all sit around the table and we write out our goals for the upcoming new year. And on my goal list of 2022, I said I'm going to finish my book. I said it out loud to the universe, my mom, my daughter. I said, I am going to come up with a strategic plan to get my book. And that was New Year's of 2022, turning to 2023. And January 1st, I got started. And my plan was I am going to write every day in the morning because I know my energy. You got to be acquainted with your own habits and know when you got your best energy. And when you got your best energy, that's when you tackle your biggest task. So at nighttime, my energy is gone. I'm no good to nobody. I will not read. I will not take phone calls at night. I'm done. Now, I said every single day, I'm going to use 10 minutes to write something in my book. Now, some days my brain was cooking. My brain was cooking where I went about 4 hours of writing. Other days I would draw a blank and just like I got nothing. But I made it a point to be in front of my book, writing, typing it out for at least 10 minutes. So if I had nothing in that 10-minute period, at least I stood at my computer 10 minutes with my thoughts. I go into prayer and then I stayed 10 minutes. And some days I had nothing, but some days I was cooking and some days I did 10 minutes of writing. Some days was 1 hour. And it took 10 months to actually finish the book. So I started January 1st and then I finished it October, like right around Halloween. And then I got in touch with a friend of mine gave me a phone number of a publishing company, and that was a difficulty. See, when you have a fire, when you have a dream, when you have a vision, life has a way of standing in front of you and testing your heart, testing your tenacity to see if you really want the very thing you're claiming you want. And I had a bunch of bumps. This was not just poof. I had a publishing company. It went south. It didn't go down the way it was supposed to go down. They released me from my contract. They said it was going to be out in the summer of 2023. My book is supposed to be out a long time ago, and it wasn't. And we broke contract. Thank God they released me from the contract with the court, the attorneys, and everything. And then my pastor is Pastor Raymond Ramos. He is an author, so he helped me independently publish my book.
Wow, amazing. You know, you're getting me goosebumps. I've been working on a couple of projects and I love this idea. I'm going to steal it, Randy. I'm going to steal your idea of setting a goal and saying it out loud and doing some every day. I've been working on a book of my own.
Okay.
And my doctorate degree, which has been on hold for a long time, but I think it's time to come off that shelf and get going.
Oh,
you just inspired me right now.
It's yours. It's yours. All it takes is my commitment was 10 minutes a day. I actually wrote it down on a piece of paper, but I shared it with my family. And I actually did it, but I had something that I was committed to. I had to do it 10 minutes a day. And I didn't see this part. I didn't know that I was going to, when I wrote 10 minutes a day, I did not know that I was going to have days where my spirit and my brain was cooking and I was going to actually stay there 4 hours. I actually thought that I was going to only write 10 minutes a day. I had no idea what doors were going to open. I'll tell you, the other thing that's amazing is I had no idea where the words were going to come from, because my book, Pain to Power, if you can see my shirt, I mark it everywhere. My friends say always mark it. That's what they say, always mark it. Pain to Power shirt. Order your copy today. Click the link that says order your copy. Now, my book is not just my story. My book is not just another rags to I'm not rich, but another rags to light, pain to pop. My book is not a memoir. It's not an autobiography. Everybody has a story. I mean, I know some horrific story. I got a friend, she's a Muslim, she came from a refugee camp, and now the thing she's from, now she's the stuff she's doing is amazing. I got friends that seen some bad things happen. They're doing amazing. So my book is not just another autobiography. My book is 50% autobiography, because I do have a deep story full of pain, but and how I got out of it. So my book is 50% autobiography. The other 50% is teaching points to get you from your pain to your power, to your freedom, to your progress, to your healing, to your transformation, to your purpose, to your power. So my book is 50% autobiography. The other 50% is teaching points to get you into the power.
So 50% inspiration and 50% learning. That's what your book is about.
Absolutely. What a great way to put it.
I love it. You have to be inspired before you take action, right? So it's good to see and learn from others' examples. And this is honestly, this is why I do this podcast, is because one, I'm going to be, selfish here and say, I want to learn, I'm learning from you today. I'm taking tips from you today. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And we're sharing this out with the world too. We have to look at other people's stories, look at their pain and how they changed and what they did with it, because a lot of people unfortunately are stuck where they are. Not everyone has moved from where they are and found that one step or that that direction they're going to take. So it's important that we share this. And coincidentally, I was a refugee too, Randy. I actually came to the United States in '94 as a refugee, and I had one dream. I wanted to be a teacher. And I love
power, yeah.
Yes. I mean, I did the teaching, we moved on to other things, but it's amazing how other people's stories motivate us. And it's good that we have this inspiration to read and listen to and hear from. And I love your energy. I love the enthusiasm you bring, because I think outside of reading your book, they need to see you right here, being motivated. So tell me, Randy, and tell people, what do they get? What do people buying your book? What do they get out of it? I know you just mentioned that there's a lot of teaching and tips. Can you maybe mention one example that they can get?
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away because I will want them to purchase the book, but I'll give this. So first, let me just say this. Thank you for your transparency and letting me know that you are a refugee as well, and that you came to this place, America, and you fulfilled a dream. And you're a Maxwell coach, and now you have a podcast, and you're working on your master's or your PhD. I forgot what you said. And you're a teacher, so you're already making major contributions to people and allowing your story to be an inspiration. That is part of the inspiration part. So Simon Sinek, we were talking about him in private. Now, I was taught to figure out your why, your W, your purpose, the reason you want to, your inspiration behind the book. They told me, get you a why that you could run through walls with. And they told me, don't just have one reason to write a book, because your dream is your book, or your book is going to lead to the dream. And the more reasons you got, the more whys, the more purpose, the more why, the more reasons you got, the greater the odds to get to your dream, to get it done. So they said, think of an airplane. An airplane has 4 or sometimes 6 engines. Your dream is the plane, your reasons are the engines. And the more reasons or inspirations or purposes you got, the greater the odds you will reach your destination. Now, one of my inspirations was always to get my story out there. It was Dr. Maya Angelou who said one of the worst tragedies in life is to go through life with an untold story. And I wanted to tell my story. The other reason is ongoing gratitude to God. The other reason is because of all the men that have made sacrifices for me to be where I'm at. It was Dr. Maya Angelou again that said, though I stand as one, I come as 10,000. There is a lot of people that contributed to making me the man I am today. I dedicated an entire chapter explaining this called mentorship in my book. The other reason is legacy purposes. I'm at an age, Nagam, where I need to do things that matter and that last. I need to make a difference. I need to know that my life was not filled up with days of indifference, that I matter, count, and that I made a difference to somebody else. So the other thing is I want to impact lives of people that I'm never going to meet. And the best way to do that is to put it in a book. Now, one of the exercises, so I'll give away one exercise that's in the book. One of the exercises is this. So my wife, Maria, my beautiful wife, Maria Nena, I dedicated my book to her because it takes a strong woman to be. Well, the reason why I am who I am is because of my wife, who is my backbone. Now, my wife she no longer, but my wife used to watch a reality show, Nagam, and the name of the reality show was called My 600-Pound Life. And My 600-Pound Life was a reality TV show that people who were obese, that were carrying 600 pounds and more of unnecessary weight, and they could walk, but they were very slow. All the unnecessary weight was slowing them down. Although they could walk, they were very slow. And then it hit me. I got a concept from watching My 600-Pound Life. All this unnecessary weight that these people are carrying, it was slowing them down. And I said, how many of us have a 600-pound emotional life? How many of us are carrying unnecessary weight and baggage of pain in the past and trauma and guilt and shame and bad memory? How many of us actually have a 600-pound emotional life? And even though we could go to work and we could go to dinner, it's really slowing us down. How much faster and more focused and quickly can we move by removing some of this weight? So, one of the exercises I explained in my book is called fear versus irrational fear. So a lot of us carry fear, and it's really irrational fear. That's an unnecessary emotional weight. So what I did was I went to my mentor, Marco Pardo. He's in the book. He wrote the dedication, the forward in my book. I went to Marco Pardo and I said, let's do this exercise on fear. So he had me write down all my fears, and he's the one that separated the fears based on real fear and unrealistic fear. And the unrealistic fear I had to let go because that was the emotional weight. So my first fear, I remember writing this down. I remember it was in his backyard in Northridge, California. We were sitting down, and it was during the pandemic, so he was sitting 10 feet away from me. But I did this exercise. I'm hungry. We were during COVID, and I said this. I wrote down this fear that I had, nigga, and it said this. I said, I am afraid. I carry a fear that I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. I have this idea that I'm supposed to provide with groceries, rent. I'm supposed to provide for my family. And I have a fear that I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. And then he told me this. He goes, do you have any skills? I say, yeah, I've been a drug counselor for over 20 years. He said, "Do you have any dreams?" I said, "Yeah, I want to do this, that, and the other." He said, "Do you have any gifts or strengths?" I said, "I'm a communicator." I said, I'm hungry. I got mentors." He said, "Then you're never gonna run out of income, and you're never gonna not provide for your family." He says, "Because you have a skill, because you have self-awareness, and you know your own gifts, and you know how to develop them, and you know the industries that you belong, that you're made for, you will always have an income and be able to care for your family." When he said that, it broke. That it felt like a mountain being removed. This is how powerful this stuff is. It felt like, because sometimes fear or emotions feels like a mountain sitting on your chest and you can't really do anything. So fear cripples our ability to experience a full life. So when he said that, it dropped that particular fear. And then we went down a whole list, but I just wanted to give you one example for the sake of time.
I absolutely love this. This reminds me, every time I have a conversation with my husband about something that I am feeling guilty about, what he says to me is that the mere fact that you actually feel guilty about something is that your subconscious is thinking about it, and you have this drive to do something about it, and not many people actually have this. So it's a great start. Now go and do. And I want to remind people too, listening and watching, is that having the fear could, just like you said, could cloud your judgment. But then I think it's important to reflect on it. Why? Where's it coming from? What's bringing it on? And talking to somebody, I think, is really important, because sometimes if we just keep it in, it gets translated into something else. And if you talk about it to somebody, it may, and reflect on it yourself, it comes to the light, and it can be translated into other things, into action, into something that you can actually take steps towards and do. And I'm so happy that you used this example today, because I think most of the problems in life come from fear of something. And I think John Maxwell talks about it, right?
Yeah. Fear of something. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, amazing. I could talk to you for hours, but unfortunately, we have come to the end of our podcast tonight. And I want to, first of all, I want to thank you. And I can't thank you enough for all the great messages that you have brought on tonight, because it doesn't matter if your story is similar to somebody else. It's your story. It's, the human behind it that did all this work. That's you. And that's commendable. That's highly commendable. I wanted to ask you one last question. What message would you give to aspiring and future leaders, people who maybe feeling stuck where they are? What message do you have for people like that?
Yeah, I feel like, so there may be other reasons why people get stuck in life. I'm gonna give you two, but there may be more. The first reason why people feel stuck or stay stuck is because of some deep emotional wound that needs to be healed. And I think, like, you could start by getting my book, Pain to Power. You can start by reading my book. The second reason people stay stuck is because of purpose. A lot of people in today's cultural society, youngsters, old timers, the reason they're stuck is they don't know where they're going or what they're supposed to be doing in life. So I would tell anybody who is a future leader to keep growing, heal, because growth and healing to me is different. So healing is going into your history and shutting emotional doors and revisiting traumatic experiences of the past, mainly in childhood. Growing is going to conferences, reading, having good conversations like me and you. So you can have these conversations and get these ideas, but we still need to do some healing, because when you're growing, you're putting on the armor, but you're still bleeding on the inside, and it'll infect everything. So I do think we need to do some healing, but on the other hand, we need to discover our purpose. And how you discover purpose is through understanding your gift. Your gift or your strength opens the door to your purpose. How you discover your gift or your strength is through self-awareness and feedback. People have to tell you some feedback. You're good with kids. You're good with your hands. You're good with mechanic. You're a good communicator. You're good with computers. So getting constant feedback gives you an idea of what your gift is, or self-awareness of what your gift is. Your gift opens the door for your purpose.
What a beautiful message. Heal, grow, reflect on your strengths, because that's what builds you up. If you keep focusing on your weaknesses, you're not going to grow. Think about your strengths. What a beautiful message. I want to thank you so much. Randy Quinones is on social media. He's on Facebook. Look him up, follow him, and buy his book, Pain to Power. The link is available for you to click on. It's also on Facebook if you don't see it, or hashtag Pain to Power. You'll be able to find it, read it, learn from it. Thank you so much, Randy, for all the messages, all the great transparency. It's important to listen to your story. And I want to challenge everybody tonight to take that one problem, one obstacle that you have in your way, in your path, in your road, and turn it into an opportunity like Randy did.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I wrote this post on my Facebook, is that the difference between a stumbling block and a stepping stone is how high you lift your foot. So
absolutely beautiful message. Thank you so much for joining, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.